local automations, better ways to manage your smart home, plus a new standard that's coming and even new interfaces. All of this is coming together at the same time for the Samsung SmartThings platform. And the first thing that I have been paying attention to is actually something that will help all of you Windows users. See, it was about a month ago that I looked into the SmartThings application on the Microsoft Store. Now, it required a code at that point. It was still in this beta mode, but it has now been released, and all of you can go and download this application. Now, upon entering the application, what I found was that all of my devices appeared to be there, although there's a little more to that story, and that I was able to control my SmartThings home. So everything I expected to be able to do right off the bat was there. And I've even found that turning on and turning off devices through this interface is maybe quicker than my application. The other thing that I really like about it is I can get those little Windows 10 notifications down at the bottom of my screen. Now, as I was kind of alluding to, it's not the best, and it's not even the best interface I'm going to show you today because there are a few gaps. So really what I had started out with was the devices and the scenes pages, and that's because the favorites page looked like an absolute mess when I got in there the first time. Now, as I went through those with kind of the fine-tooth comb, I figured out that my Nest devices weren't there, and I know how many of you use Nest devices with SmartThings and that new integration capability. So there will be some devices that are not available, and Nest is a great example. Even within the scenes, I'm not really able to do much there because I can't add my Nest devices to those scenes. There's nothing I can do there. Now, you might still have that ability if you have a Nest thermostat, but I only have a couple of cameras with Nest in my own home, so that was as far as I could take it. So I did go through the settings page, and one of the great things that I found there was a contact me button that actually does take you all the way to a form to get in contact with someone at Samsung if you're having some troubles. And then I thought, okay, it's time to tackle that favorites page. It wasn't the cleanest or the quickest way of going about things, but what I did find is that every time I set a favorite here, it was setting it in general for my account. Now, what's really interesting about this is a number of other devices and a number of other interfaces have just been opened up to us. What you'll find if you go and watch the Galaxy Unpacked event that happened in April is a number of Galaxy books or laptops. Those laptops actually had an announcement about a Smartthings Dashboard, and what you're going to find is exactly what I'm talking about here with the favorites page. You're going to have this mirrored interface. So all of these favorite devices, that will show up in what I think is the new best interface. And what's important to keep in mind with this as I show you it is that it's still in beta. So this isn't even something that's completed. It's going to continue to expand, but already I think this might be my favorite new interface. And keep in mind that this is what should replace the current IDE. So we'll have to see more and more features get into this as we go. So as I went to my.smartthings.com, I was instantly finding all of those favorites that had been set in the Windows application, because I actually went from one to the other just to kind of put this all together for myself. So some of the things I start falling in love with right off the bat here. I can see all of my scenes, I can execute those scenes, and I'm even able to adjust which ones are showing up in the interface. As I click into any device, I can get more information. Of course, I'm able to control them, but I can get those extra sensors out of maybe motion sensors that have a temperature or a humidity sensor on them. So I'm loving this. Plus, I am able to arm and disarm my system immediately. One of the things with that security system that I think is really important is knowing who's home and not home, and then you kind of have those two lined up. And actually right in the interface, right off the bat, is the ability to go into the history and see when people are arriving and leaving your smart home. So this is a great component, and I hope to see that further developed in terms of it kind of showing who's home and not home, and giving us some control over how we show that. And then I see the plus button up in the top right, and I'm kind of excited. I'm hoping I can add a device, but unfortunately not at this point. I can add a room, but I can only add a Groovy smart app that I've already added in and is kind of my own smart app. So it's not the ones that you see in the application that you can just go ahead and add. We're not quite there. It's still a beta interface. But as I go into the settings here, the location settings, I can't quite manage everything. It's kind of a pared down version of the settings, so we're still going to need the app for some time. Now, I told you I couldn't add more devices, and that's a little disappointing, but I was also wondering, how do I adjust the favorites here? Because I hadn't done everything over in that Windows application, but when I went into the room section, not only did I find the ability to adjust which devices were in my favorites, but I also found the ability to actually drag everything around and rearrange the entire interface. Maybe this happens to me a little more than you, but one of the things I find myself doing is constantly going into device settings and hitting the edit button and then going in and changing the room. And I like the new application because I can kind of drag and drop things between rooms or move them a little quicker between rooms anyways. Now, what happened in this interface is I figured out quickly that I could actually pull things across rooms as well. So this becomes a really easy way to manage the dashboard and to manage where the devices are sitting in your home. But where the rubber hits the road is in automation. So as I head into that section, I'm hoping to see all of my automations. I'm going to tell you guys, sorry, they're not all there yet, but we do see a lot of the smart apps, and this becomes a really quick way to get to a number of tools and a number of the smart apps that you have already installed, and allows you to adjust what you're doing. So I can change my speaker companion smart apps. I can adjust all of my smart lighting smart apps. Plus I have quick access to WebCore and action tiles and sharp tools, and all of that. I can manage things that have otherwise taken me a lot of time in the application on the smartphone. Of course, we still have the ID, and I've been using that a ton here as I've been installing a lot of new devices that require device handlers. Now, as I'm doing that, I'm also paying attention to local automation, and this is something that I think is really key and critical for the platform here for Samsung SmartThings and for people's smart homes in general. We need to have it be local in a lot of cases so that it's quick and more reliable. So I've been paying attention to this for a while myself, and there's actually some movement here within SmartThings. I was using the IDE in the past to go and I could check my device's status. You can look at it kind of over on the right. It'll say cloud or local, and if you're installing specialized device handlers, well, they end up cloud. But if it says local there, then you can go into the device and you can see which automations and which routines and which things it's being used within, and then you can look at those and see whether or not they are local. But that was becoming a bit tedious, so I'm happy that I signed up for the beta a little while ago here, and they actually allowed me into the beta, and now within my SmartThings application I have a much better indicator of local automations, and it's helping me trend my home that way. For those of you that don't want to wait, you maybe want to try the beta, well, go ahead. There's a link down below that will take you there and you can try it out for yourself. I found most of the more recent releases to be very stable. You gotta watch though, you're messing with your smart home a bit. So you can just wait for this, and it is coming very soon. They are clearly towards the end of testing and feature rollout with local automations. And that actually means I get to tell you about a couple of things that are already included. So as I head into the automation section, what I'm getting in the app right now is a little L next to any automation that is local, and therefore you can kind of tell right away they are very quick to execute versus some of the others. Now, some of the features like sunset and sunrise, I wasn't expecting those to show up and be capable within our local automations with SmartThings, but they are possible. You'll also find some of the quick quick controls down at the bottom of your list of automations, they will show local as well. So we're actually seeing the pileup of devices and lists, but probably the biggest one are still those device handlers that cause a device to go cloud-based. And that is something that Samsung and the SmartThings team have repeatedly talked to me about. The fact that over time, lots of those device handlers, they don't need to be custom, and you will be able to convert them over to something that will be managed locally. So while that's still hanging over this platform, those custom device handlers might not be needed in a lot of cases in the future. Of course, we're still going to have a few devices with that specialized functionality or specialized capability, which for you Samsung folks, I know I did a fairly thorough review of about 8 motion sensors, and I've been talking to you about the contact sensors. You know what? We've got a second video coming on the motion sensors very soon. I have a whole new set of them. Many of them are Z-Wave. In fact, I think all of them are Z-Wave, but we'll bring that out, and the contact sensor comparison. Those are still coming. Thanks for bearing with us. One of the things that I know a lot of you have been waiting on here for a long time is the ability to trigger off of contact sensors the right way. And what I mean by that is what we've had to do up until this point is just use a contact sensor opening or closing as a trigger point. Now, what you can do in the new automations capability for contact sensors is actually say how long you would like that to go on for. So I can go all the way down to 1 second, and I can go all the way up to hours if I would like to wait before the automation starts. And that's a big deal. And the other piece of this that I found really interesting, I know a lot of you integrate Amazon and you're using virtual switches. Well, guess what? Lots of those can use this specialized trigger method as well. Now, I don't have a door lock connected into Samsung SmartThings, so this is coming from my friend over at SmartThings Beat, who does a great job of following and updating people on this system in general on Twitter. So go follow him for more stuff like this, but he's found that same automation capability with door locks. And the other thing he told me about was the fact that within automations, if you're asking for a spoken notification out of a device, you can actually pick now between English and Korean for the language there. So that's a new entrant piece for those speaker notifications. Recently, I went on a podcast here with Craig from Craig's Tech Talk, and you can watch that. The link is down below. We talked about a lot of things, more personal stuff, but one of the things I was excited to talk about was some of that future smart home that I see, or what we kind of need out of the smart home industry. And one of the things I said was that our sensors have to get a lot better. We have to get more of them, and we have to do more with the ones we already have. And one of the really exciting things from CES this year was that Samsung had announced that they would be able to use older smartphones as advanced types of sensors. Now, that has actually come out and is available. You got to be in specific places, but it's available now. You can actually connect them in, and they become a different sensor type. And for example, you can do things like monitor for a baby crying in a room. So really powerful stuff, actually, if you think about the sensor technology that's available on your smartphones. Now, that capability will come through SmartThings Labs, and unfortunately, that's not rolled out everywhere, and the UK actually just recently got that. Here in Canada, we still don't have SmartThings Labs, and I am talking to Samsung about what the timelines are like on something like that. No dates as of yet for lots of other countries, but I did see SmartThings Cooking show up here in Canada. Someone else who really follows the SmartThings application, does a great job, is Phil over on Twitter as well. Now, Phil has started blogging as of recent, but one of the things he showed me was that the blinds interface had actually changed, and you get more controls immediately on entering into those blinds. So that's not just going to be great in the app, but in these other interfaces that I've shown you as well. There's lots of interesting news around the Galaxy watches. Now, the Galaxy Active 2 and 3, you're going to find SmartThings Find is available on those at this point. And speaking of SmartThings Find, well, the Smart Tags Plus have come out, and that's the version with the ability to kind of use the AR on your phone to actually go and locate these devices. That's using that ultra wideband technology in some cases, so it's going to be limited what you can and can't use, and you do have to have that Samsung phone for sure. But that's part of the more interesting news around Samsung. And you know what, we talked about that partnership a while ago with Samsung and Google. So here's a couple of little tidbits that I've heard as of late. Number one, the Galaxy Watch 4 looks like it will have Wear OS on it, and if they wanted to continue SmartThings Find, they would need to open it up a little bit here. So that will be a good thing to watch. Hopefully SmartThings Find will show up on more Android devices. But on that note, it's actually really interesting for me to tell you that Samsung has been directly contributing to Fuchsia, and that is the Google Android OS replacement, or the eventual replacement for Android. So really interesting to see how these two companies are really combining on the software and maybe even the hardware side in the future. Now, the funny thing today is that the biggest news about SmartThings isn't about SmartThings. It's about something called Matter, or it's all that matters, or I want to keep making Matter jokes because the name of the new standard, which was previously called Chip, is now Matter. So that's the standard that Amazon and Google and Apple have all said we're going to play in the sandbox well, and Signify or Philips Hue has already come out and said, you know what, our bridge is going to get updated here to work with Matter, and therefore all of our bulbs will work within this new system. So we're seeing this really great momentum, and Samsung has been a little more careful with their wording, but I thought I would share with you what I think Samsung is doing with this new standard that is coming out towards the end of 2021, and we will start to see market impacts and changes to smart homes by 2022 easily. Now, I gotta read some of this because I put it out on Twitter, and little plug there, maybe come and follow me on Twitter. I'd love to talk to you guys direct. Now, they do say that they'll be supporting existing SmartThings customers with the new standard as well as the older ones, so Zigbee, Z-Wave, Wi-Fi. But they haven't exactly said how. So I'm not terrible at this prediction thing, and I've looked into some of the details of the Matter standard. I've looked into some of the details with what we have with SmartThings hubs. Now, one of the things I said was Matter is compatible, or going to be compatible, with the V3 and the Aeotec hubs. I think that Matter will be fully enabled on those hubs. I can't imagine the blowback from people like you if they weren't capable and we had to go buy another new hub, especially with the Aeotec one just being released. I think that Thread and Bluetooth radios will be enabled on those hubs. Now, if you don't already know this, I've been talking about this for a while, but your SmartThings V3 hub has a Thread radio as well as a Bluetooth radio. Now, I have some thoughts around that Bluetooth radio. Some people have told me some different things, but I'm still going to tell you that I think both of those will be turned on so that they can be fully compliant with the new Matter standard. The hubs will act as a bridge, and this is one of the device types within the Matter standard. They will act as a bridge to Zigbee, Z-Wave, and Wi-Fi devices that don't follow the Matter standard but do connect to Samsung SmartThings. So we should see all of your existing smart home continue to work seamlessly. Just get access to a new set of devices. Now, the V2s, I know there's lots of you out there with the V2s, and somebody asked me about the Samsung Wi-Fi ones. I'm not so sure those are coming along for this ride. I feel like you could do a little bit of it with the V2, but unfortunately, I don't think those are going to be fully compatible. It doesn't mean they're going to stop working. It just means to be compatible with this new standard, you will need to upgrade, or that's what I think. Now, I did on Twitter say, I think they have to turn on that Bluetooth radio. And this is something that I was kind of told a couple of times. No, they don't have to do that. I still think that this is what will happen. And I still am hoping that both of those radios are turned on and suddenly we have access to this whole new set of devices. It would be confusing for a new standard to come out and then have a bunch of different implementations for it. That would be a bad thing to do, I think. However, there is much more to this whole story, and I've put together 2 videos now that will help you understand what's going on here. Number 1 up on screen is our video about the chip or the new Matter standard and whether or not it will impact your existing smart home. I think you heard some of it with SmartThings, but there's other devices that you got to think about. You can go watch that. The other video is actually a full comparison of all of these different smart home protocols. It will tell you everything you need to know about all of them. So thanks for watching today, guys. Otherwise, of course, don't hate, automate.